Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about Season 2, Episode 7 of HBO's House of the Dragon, entitled The Red Sowing. So I expressed concerns in my video last week after last week's filler episode that we were probably due for another filler episode this week, and unfortunately my fears were realized. This season, it started off incredibly strong, but ever since that great fourth episode, it feels like the show has kind of just been stretching out time until the finale. Which is an incredible critique to have, considering that this show got a bad rep last season for skipping over too much. And these are decisions that the show made last season that I defended right here on this channel. So it's frustrating for me to have a show that I've commended on its pacing slam on the brakes like this. It's not all bad though, far from it. This episode actually had more good than bad, with an absolutely riveting climax and pretty satisfying resolutions to some of the subplots and interesting turns in other subplots. But it also delivered a line that I truly love, and I want to incorporate it into my own personal lexicon. I'm not going to say what it is, but I think by the end of this video, you'll probably have figured it out. So, Daemon's subplot in Harrenhal, I think, is going to be looked back on as the ultimate failure of this season. Starting out compelling and then being dragged out so long as to not only damage the flow of the story, but also to undermine his character, taking one of the most badass characters from season 1 and burying him in a story that hasn't gone anywhere for several episodes. He hasn't fought anybody. He hasn't done anything. All he's done is hallucinate. And while we're talking about Harrenhal, speaking of which, this show has clearly been building up to a major confrontation that's going to take place there all season. And yet again, we move no closer to it by instead focusing on the other subplots that we also have not been moving. Basically,
I mislike all of this.
I know it'll happen next week since that's the finale, but if this was a 10-episode season, I'd be fully confident in telling you guys to expect another 2 episodes of bullshit. But like I said, I'm not here to entirely criticize this because there was a lot to like this week as well. So let's get into it. Hey everybody, I just want to take a small break from this review to talk about the various other ways you can engage with me on other platforms. If you're so inclined, and I understand why you wouldn't, I am an acquired taste, but you can join the Patreon where you can get extra content like retro reviews, where I review old shows and movies to see if they still hold up today, Mike's Musings, where I talk about shows I'm watching that I don't cover on the channel, or Mike's VOD, where you can commission me to watch a show, which I will then review on the channel. And if you want to engage with me and chat with me more directly, I also implore you to join the Discord and follow the Facebook page. I set up channels in the Discord for all of us to discuss the shows I'm reviewing on the channel, and I also drop new videos in there since it's the easiest platform for me to share to from my phone. The Facebook can be really fun because I sort of live comment on shows I'm watching, often while under the influence, I'm not going to lie. And I'll also share news there, both about television and film and about myself as well. So if you like my content, you want to be more engaged, you think I'm charming, or you simply want to show support, feel free to sign up for the Patreon or join the Discord or Facebook today. Links to all platforms are in every video description. Remember to share all my shit to your respective social media platforms. And now back to this review. While this episode did continue to drag out the Daemon stuff and the ultimate confrontation in Harrenhal, it did wrap up a few things as well. The subplots that involved Alan/Adam, Hugh the blacksmith, and Ulf. Ulf's the guy at the bar. He was given a name this week. He claimed to be a bastard brother of Viserys and Daemon. All of those subplots connected with the A-plot this week. They set up the connection at the end of episode 5, I believe, when Jay suggested the plan of finding people with Targaryen blood who could ride Vermithor and Silverwing. I, of course, said right here at the time that this was how Hugh and Alan would connect to the A-plot, and I was largely correct, but not completely. We confirmed this week that it was, in fact, Adam who was seen riding Sea Smoke, which is what I was wrong about because I said it would be Alan that would be the Dragon Rider. But props to the show for that fake out, though, because they really played up Alan and downplayed Adam, so there was no way any of us without book knowledge could have figured that out and figured out that it would be Adam. But I dug this shot of Cyrax and Sea Smoke kind of having this side conversation while Adam and Rhaenyra kind of hash things out. Although, given the parties involved, I'd say that Cyrax and Sea Smoke are the ones having the main conversation and Adam and Rhaenyra are having the side one. But nevertheless, they also nicely weaved in Rhaenyra and Mysaria's plan to cater to the people of King's Landing with the Dragon Rider plan as well. So that woman, the servant lady who was sent to King's Landing a couple of weeks ago, she begins a nice little game of telephone, informing the people of Rhaenyra's desire to find 2 dragon riders and that there will be boats leaving for Dragonstone so they could all go over there and participate in the tryouts. Hugh, the blacksmith, he overhears this, and we apparently learn that his daughter died off camera. Like, what the fuck?
I mislike all of this.
He decides that he's going to go over to Dragonstone to audition because, long story short, he's the cousin of Viserys and Daemon. He tells his wife that he never knew his father, but his mother was a silver-haired prostitute who told Hugh that he was no different from her brother's boys, Viserys and Daemon. This would make Hugh's mother the daughter of King Jaehaerys and the aunt of Viserys and Daemon, thus making Hugh their first cousin. I also liked how the idea of Targaryen-looking prostitutes is a callback, or could be a call forward, depending on how you look at it, to that brothel in Essos where women dressed up like Daenerys in Game of Thrones. So that's something that persists, this idea of like fucking Targaryens. I like that little callback, call forward, whatever. Then lastly, Ulf, and I don't know, like I said, I feel like he got the name this episode. I could have missed it previously, but Ulf is gassed up by his homies to go over and audition to be a dragon rider as well. He even hedges briefly on his claim that he's been using all this time, that he's the bastard brother of Viserys and Daemon. I think he said bastard. I'm pretty sure. But if you're ever doubting yourself, get you some friends like Ulf's because they hype him up until he agrees to go to Dragonstone. So with Sea Smoke claimed by Adam, the only thing left to decide is who, between Hugh and Ulf, will get which dragon between Vermithor and Silverwing, and also how, of course, that's going to play out. And the best scene of the episode, Vermithor seems to give this process a lot of thought before he ultimately tries to kill everybody who's there. We get a good several minutes of Vermithor just laying waste to this scene, and it's absolutely awesome. We also get some great close-ups of both Vermithor and Silverwing in these final scenes that I think really showcase how far the dragon CGI has come since Game of Thrones. But ultimately, Hugh ends up taming Vermithor, and then Ulf, who was knocked into the dragon pit itself, he stumbles across Silverwing and is able to mount it as well, leading to the second life comes at you fast shot of this episode, with Aemon attempting to chase Silverwing on Vhagar, presumably thinking that it was Sea Smoke, sees all of the problems awaiting him on Dragonstone and busts a Yui and heads back to King's Landing. But speaking of life comes at you fast, though, I do want to circle back to the Daemon subplot because, like I said earlier, it wasn't all bad. This was a solid episode for the Daemon subplot, as we were only subjected to one, and hopefully the last one, hallucination. The bulk of Daemon's plot focuses on the fact that Grover Tully is now dead, so the new boy king, Oscar Tully, is now in charge. Daemon, and I, last week, assumed this meant he had essentially won the Riverlands, as both he and I knew that the Riverlords would do as whoever was the head of the Tully house instructed them to do, and the Tullys were pledged to Viserys, and thus Rhaenyra, and thus Daemon. But Oscar would not be so easily walked over, though. He tells Daemon that the Riverlords think he's a whole bitch for how he's handled the Blackwoods versus the Brackens, so they probably won't raise banners for him anyway, which the Riverlords told him to his face last week. Additionally, as Oscar is young and, of course, new to this title, the Riverlords may not listen to his direction anyway. But Daemon is still confident when the Riverlords arrive, talking over Oscar and basically telling them, like, you're pledged to the Tullys, this kid's in charge of the Tullys, he wants me to have an army, so get to it. What are you waiting for? Oscar then takes over and hilariously claims both allegiance to House Targaryen and that Daemon is a little bitch that he don't respect. like I respect the Targaryens, even if they send little bitch boys like this over here on their behalf. But then in the first Life Comes At You Fast moment that I alluded to a moment ago, Oscar says that if Daemon wants his army, he needs to make right what he instructed the Blackwoods to do and execute Willem Blackwood himself. Man, that is the most Life Comes At You Fast face ever. Like 45 seconds prior, he was talking over this kid and making demands, and now he's like, fuck, I gotta kill this guy who is loyal to me if I want this army. Great moment, great scene, and this also feels like a callback or call forward to Lyanna Mormont and her great scene as a child queen in Game of Thrones. Before I wrap this up, though, I want to talk about Rhaenyra's small council and her son, Adolf Targaryen. When Rhaenyra returns to Dragonstone with Sea Smoke, Sea Smoking Adam, and says that she wants Adam trained. Her entire council is like aghast at the idea of some lowborn scum riding a dragon. Jace Hitler calls these potential riders mongrels, even though it was his idea to look for them. And makes it sound like it cheapens the Targaryen bloodline for bastards to ride dragons. And these scenes do a lot because the idea of class factoring into who rides dragons, it's a real thing and a true concern. But man, these scenes felt mad racist. like you want the perception that only your classic looking Targaryen can ride dragons. And then Jace himself is a bastard with black hair. So if any old bastard can fly a dragon, what's stopping someone else from coming along and hopping on dragons and making claims in the future? Like, that's a real issue, both in the show and historically in real life. Obviously not with dragons, but like with bastards making claims to thrones. It's happened many times over in history. But all that on the show happened before Adam's black ass arrived. After Adam's black ass arrived and before any of the white guys became dragon riders. So it sure felt like they were opposed to his blackness rather than his low-bornness.
I mislike all of this.
Like, even in the after show, the creators are explaining Jace's motivations. But the clip they played left out the word mongrel. And while they were talking about it, they showed he doesn't want any non-Targaryen bastards on the riding dragons. And while they say this, they show a shot of Hugh and they show a shot of Ulf. But when Jace said that, Hugh and Ulf weren't even a thing yet. Like, all of what he said was in response to Adam. So all this talk of like diluted bloodlines from Jace, it sounded real Hitlery in the moment. But to be fair, a lot of this show and Game of Thrones seems to be modeled off of European history, so having some Hitlery-ass lines, it kind of tracks. But I want to close with two thoughts. For starters, the Alicent stuff I thought was weak this week. I understand they want to convey a dissatisfaction and a listlessness with being relegated to like motherly duties, but dedicating an entire episode to that felt like a strange decision. And then secondly and lastly, what's going to happen with Aegon? He's up and walking now. Well, not easily, but it is happening. But it's torturous, and he's not very good at it. But Larys is insisting, and I love what this says about Larys. He tried to suck up to Aemon, and Aemon is like, I see right through this bullshit. Go get me Otto Hightower, you sick sycophant. So he's like, he being Larys, he's like, well, I guess I better get Aegon healthy as quickly as possible. And let me just say, I hope things play out the way that Larys wants, because that's an interesting direction to take the show, in my opinion. Like, if Aegon gets better, already that's bad for Aemon in a number of ways that I don't even need to explain to you guys. But if he gets better and isn't fully fit to lead, who's he going to trust the most? Larys. So the idea of Larys kind of like shadow running Westeros, I think that's kind of intriguing. But that's all I got for this week. Are you excited for the finale? Concerned? Let me know what you think in the comments. And until next week and the finale, peace.